Hi everyone, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, guys, over. Let's get started. So, who am I? Like Jake mentioned, I graduated from Escape in November. Finished the first class. I was a VFX slash technical artist at Escape. Started off with 3D VFX course, then I transitioned into game art and moved on to my career in games, so working on Fable. Got the job around 5 months ago, and now I'm the real-time VFX artist at Playground Games. Okay, so what is a good portfolio? It's not an easy answer, just say, oh, look at this person and copy. Each individual portfolio will be unique and different to mine, for example. So if we just go a bit deeper into what actually is a good portfolio. So I think the really important thing to start with is you need to understand your niche or your specialism. What I mean by that is different specialisms will have different portfolios. So a VFX or a tech art portfolio will look really different to a character art portfolio. You'll see in some portfolios more text, more breakdowns, and some less. But I think all portfolios should have a few pillars in common, and we'll go into them a bit into more detail later on. One thing that when I was a student at Escape, I wasn't really told much about it, is that you need to remember that you're a junior level artist. And what I mean by that is when you go on an art station, you look at someone's portfolio, you will see a lot of pretty screenshots, the best shots you can possibly find, and you'll see like 3 or 4 of them. And if you just copy that as a junior artist, it won't really get you far because it has no context. Yes, it seems like you can do a pretty image, but in reality it has no meaning to it, apart from, oh, yes, you can do that, but it doesn't show how you did it. It doesn't show why you did it, why you made certain choices. Also, another thing that a junior artist should keep in mind is you need to go a step further with your portfolio. Like something that was mentioned to me before by Chloe, our recruiter, and she said that it's really nice for recruiters to see how people go outside of their way and they don't just do uni projects. Though it can be hard during unis to focus on other projects. You might not have the time, you have deadlines, you have to do retrospectives, even though you guys are lucky this year, it was cancelled for you. But yeah, if you can find the time, collaborate with people, find unique, interesting ideas that you can put into your own project. It doesn't have to be what 15 other people did in your group, because at the end of the day, when you have one exact task to do, 15 people, at least in your group, will have the same portfolio or same roughly looking portfolio. So when a recruiter looks at that, they'll see 15 similar things rather than you standing out with your own unique portfolio pieces of projects. Another thing, I was told that, yes, you should break down your projects, but a lot of the time when I spoke to recruiters from different studios, they would say, oh, a recruiter only spends 15 seconds on your portfolio, which is true, but once they're engaged and interested, they will be looking for more to see why you stand out as a junior artist and not the others. Here's where breaking down your projects come in. Not every project can be broken down the same way. You can have a VFX project, which will be broken down with a bunch of text, nodes and real engine graphs, textures, not really pretty shots. And then if you have a character art, for example, you have hair cards, you'll have normal maps, how you bake, you'll have your topology showing off your actually around the eyes for like deformation and for animation. It really all depends on what you're doing, but I think if you want to show that you're passionate, if you want to show that you want the job, and if you want to tell them, oh, look at me, I'm your best person to hire, then you should really go in depth about your project. Also, another thing I have noticed when I was putting together this presentation, I was doing a lot of research. I noticed that when I was in uni, I was told, oh, find yourself not a role model, but find yourself an artist who's from the industry and try and make your portfolio as good as theirs. After doing quick research about different portfolios of different artists, not just from Playground and many, many different studios, I noticed that all of them, they do have just very simple screenshots of the projects, best screenshots, best beauty shots, and that's all. There's no breakdowns, just maybe a few comments below. And it really isn't helpful for a junior artist because as a junior artist, you want to stand out, you want to break down your projects. The reason professionals don't do it as much is because a lot of the time you're under NDA. So when Fable is released, I won't be able to show in-engine footage because it's under NDA. So most likely my portfolio will look a lot different to what I'm saying right now. It will have just beauty shots and in-game footage. So moving on as to why you should break down. I kind of already touched on it, but like I mentioned, it's not every recruiter will look for 15 seconds at your work. And you're not doing it just for the recruiters. The recruiter will spend 15 seconds looking at your work. If they like it, they will send it off to the art director or the lead, VFX lead, whatever specialty he's doing, to the leads. And they'll be the people looking at your work. Breaking down also shows passion, shows your enthusiasm, shows that you're willing to put time in and effort to break down and show that you really know what you're talking about. Another thing that breaking down your portfolio pieces helps you, that's just putting pretty shots doesn't, is you show your problem solving. One of the things I had in my portfolio was for a snow shader, and I was working with Unreal Engine's tessellation. And they didn't have tessellation, so I had to go with a very primitive way of doing tessellation. And it wasn't working well at all. It was horrible. I had tons of problems. I had no normal maps. I had no shadows, nothing. So it wasn't really the end result I was going for. And I found solutions to those problems and I worked around them. And that was something that Brian, who's my lead artist, he picked up a lot, is saying that you showed that you can problem solve. And I think for you guys as well, it's really important to show that you can solve problems and you won't just crumble under pressure, because all you do in studio is pretty much solving problems. All I'm doing right now is I'm giving a simple task and it could take me a day to figure out how to do it because there's different tech in every studio. There will be different problems you encounter on your way. So I think it's really important to show your breakdowns, talk about why you did this certain decision, what went good, what went bad. You don't have to focus on the bad stuff. You don't have to put your work down, you need to sell it. But you really should focus on breaking down all projects, no matter what specialism it is. And I think on to the next slide, this is, I would say, a pretty important slide and pretty important topic is you need to, I guess you guys all have encountered, the more recruits you speak to, more different stuff you hear from them every single time. So one recruiter will say, oh yes, I love breakdowns, I look at them all the time, that's what I look for. Another recruiter will tell you, don't spend more than 10, 30 seconds looking at a portfolio piece. If it doesn't interest me, I'll just move on, because in reality, recruiters do get a ton of applications every day from junior artists, from previous industry veterans, and right now, especially with how many layoffs there are in the games industry. So the competition just keeps on rising. And if you tick all the boxes that all different recruits might look for, you only increase your own chance of getting a job. So the first box I'd say you should tick is, and everyone already kind of does it, or aims to do it, is have your first best impression. So is your thumbnail. So your thumbnail should be interesting. It shouldn't be It can be, but it shouldn't be your most beautiful shots that you have. You can save that for your portfolio, but it should be something interesting, something intriguing. It should stand out in the middle of, let's say, hundreds of different ArtStation posts. And if you look at them, they all look really similar, with similar fonts, because one is trying to copy another and you're trying to learn off one another, and it all just becomes very similar. So if you can stand out, choose an interesting shot, colors, play around with putting different titles, using different fonts, adding software onto it, what you can do, what you use. And it will help you stand out, because recruiters' eye will just pick up your project because it stands out in like a very saturated page of portfolios like ArtStation. And the next box is, once you got your beautiful thumbnail and the recruiter is interested and they clicked on it, you need to show that you're consistent with your work, or spend extra 30 seconds or 2 minutes, or a little longer, looking at different pieces of your work. So you should keep consistent with your thumbnails, with your work, with the same quality screenshots. You should have like similar point, have a theme to your portfolio. Stay unique, and that's how they're going to memorize you, because you're staying consistent and unique. And the last thing that not all recruiters do, some do, some don't, but is breakdowns. That's what they come to play. Is very important thing that I talk the most about is breakdowns. If you can break down the portfolio, that's going to be the people that look at it, is the recruiters that do look at it. That's your third box that you tick off for yourself. Is once they like your work, it's consistent, they flick through a lot, they will now start to nitpick what is bad about your portfolio, what's good, like why you fit in, why you might not fit in. That's when they're going to start digging deeper into your project and maybe looking at screenshots, trying to find what's wrong, what's good. And if you can nail down the breakdowns and have breakdowns consistent throughout every single project, it will really help in a long run, as you will be able to show that you know what you're doing. If they hire you and they throw you in deep end and say, do this, they'll know that you have the knowledge behind it. You might have never done it before, but the lead and the recruiters, they will know that, oh yes, you can do it. So I think we should hire this junior artist. Also, another thing that's not on this slide, but it goes kind of to what projects you pick. You shouldn't aim to only do very big projects in terms of gameplay VFX. A lot of the time when you get a junior job, you're not really going to be doing gameplay VFX. If you can show a solid understanding of your specialism of your work, that you know how to do the basics. The basics are applied to everything you do in a more complex work. So if you know the basics through the breakdowns, you show them that, oh look, this might be a simple project, but look how many problems are solved. Look how much I understand my topic. They will be confident in you, and they'll be confident to hire you. Closing off on the topic of portfolios, of how to structure it, I think it's quite important to talk about ArtStation or a website. It's something that I asked a lot of questions about during university to a lot of different recruiters, and I never really got a definite answer to it. They would just say, oh, best stick to ArtStation because ArtStation, more people like that, which I agreed with, but I still went ahead and had my own website. Let's just talk a bit more about the positives, the negatives of ArtStation and the website. So for ArtStation, it's pretty straightforward. It's free and it's easy and quick to set up. You have high exposure to recruiters, so more and more recruiters will look at your work rather than your website, because they need to know the name of your website, and it's not just going to pop up randomly on their screen. And also, what I like a lot about ArtStation that you don't really get with your website is engagement and networking. You will get comments, people like your work, they'll repost it. that can help you get noticed by more recruiters. However, not everything is so great about ArtStation. In ArtStation, like I mentioned previously, it's oversaturated. There's a lot of really, really good work, and a lot of the time, the best work is put to the top of the search. So it's harder to stand out. Everyone will have similar thumbnails, similar layouts, it's like similar text, similar colors and setup of the thumbnails. So it's really hard to stand out in a very saturated market. Also, ArtStation gives you less control. You're only limited to what ArtStation lets you do. So you can't easily break down your work. Let's say if you're a VFX artist, a technical artist, you might need your website to really go in depth with your work. Because ArtStation, when I tried doing my breakdowns in ArtStation, it was inconvenient. You had to have your images with your broken down text. So not always it was the correct resolution. The text could be blurred out. So you need to think before what you choose, ArtStation or the website. I think the final point is to you're competing for attention. This kind of links to harder to stand out, and they are very similar, but competing for attention is there's a lot more people trying to get a job now. It's not just the professionals who already got the jobs and posting the stuff on ArtStation, it's the ones you're competing with who will be doing similar things to you, trying to stand out, trying to do better. So it's going to be really hard to compete with them and stand out because there's a lot of people to compete and you can't keep up with everyone and be on top of what's going on in ArtStation. And that might be the reason you go towards a website and more about it there. So why would you go for a website? Why I chose a website is pretty straightforward for me. The first point kind of sold it. Full creative control. So on my website, I could set up the layout I wanted to set up. I could do the breakdowns I wanted to do. I was not limited to pretty much anything. Yes, it takes more time, but I think for an artist and for a lot of people, full creative control should be really important because you can stand out with that. Also, another thing that I didn't like ArtStation for was platform dependency, which your website doesn't have. It's your website, it's your rules, it's your setup, it's your layout. You can do whatever you want with it, and you don't need to ask any more questions. You know, if there's any technical issues, you can resolve them yourself. You don't need to contact anyone. No one's going to ban your work. Nothing will happen to your work. It's all yours, 100%. And that's what I really like about having a website. Going back to full creative control and easier to break down projects, they're closely linked. With full creative control, you can easier break down your projects. And as a VFX artist, that is exactly what I needed. Next point on is multifunctioning. And with my website, if you guys do go on later on, you'll notice that I have a page for work in progress. I have another page that I'm kind of working on, which is milestones of my career. So not all people will look at it, but it's for myself. And it will help me track my career, it will help me see how well I'm doing or how not good I'm doing. And I can set myself goals that way. You can have a contacts page, you can have blog posts, you know, and you can grow your own little community on your website where people will communicate. It will take more effort, but you can do it. And then on to the negatives of the personal website is costs money and it's much more effort. In terms of money, it costs me around £15 a month and £20 a year for my own domain. And for just hosting the website every month, so it's 15 quid. So it's around £35. Well, not £35, it's a lot more than that, but it's one of the months is like £35. So it's not too bad. If you've got a job, it's like paying for a Netflix subscription or Spotify. So if you can do that, you can afford a website. one of the things that I actually wasn't aware much of, and Chloe mentioned it to me, was that your website can be blocked by studio security protocols. So if your website isn't secure, your recruiter might not even be able to access it. So that's not good. So if you want to make your own website, you need to make sure that it follows all the internet safety rules and your website is secure and there's no issues with it, and make sure that people can access it. Ask your friends. If you're not sure if it's working or not, ask your friends. Ask the university you go into, because they will most likely have similar security protocols. I think the biggest negative of having a website is less organic traffic. What that means is basically people won't find your website unless they're looking for. So a lot of the time people want to look for references or inspiration. They'll just search ArtStation and they've got thousands, millions of different projects and works. If a recruiter wants to just look at someone's work, or if they're just searching for a new artist, they'll go to ArtStation or other similar websites where they'll find people. And your website won't have that unless it's searchable. So that is a big thing to consider if you're willing to sacrifice organic traffic for creative control. Then ArtStation might be the way to go. But for me, I wasn't really bothered about organic traffic, as I would, when I applied to jobs, I applied to around 35 different positions, and I would just send them my portfolio website. That means they know the link, they won't be looking for me if they don't need me. And I don't think that a lot of people just get random messages on ArtStation saying, oh, would you like a job? We saw your work. So I don't think you're losing out on much, but it could be a very important thing to consider. And the last thing about websites is it can look unpolished and it takes time to do it well. If you don't do it well, it might look more unprofessional than professional, and it might be a bigger negative than you think it could be. So if you want to go for a website and you want to work on one, is you need to polish it, you need to put a lot of time into it. And that's things like your page layout needs to be straightforward. You don't want to have your recruiter clicking through different pages. If they have to click through 15 different pages just to get to your breakdown or just to get to your actual project renders, they might just get tired and not want to go with it. So you need to think about it, look at different examples online, research into it. It will take a lot of time and effort, but if it's done right, it will help you. But if it's unpolished, then might be a bigger problem than you really think it is. One of the things that I wanted to do with this presentation is I asked people from my team what they look for, because I only have been in the industry for 5 months and they know way more than me. And I asked my lead and the senior artist of VFX team, and they gave some notes and some advice for you guys to think about and put it into your portfolios. First thing, that Brian Merrill is a VFX lead artist, so he's my lead. I work with him every single day. First thing that he said is detailed breakdowns, and something I've been going on about a lot is detailed breakdowns. He wants to see that you guys are doing work that's beyond common tutorials online. And it's very easy to see what tutorial you've followed. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't follow tutorials and learn from them. That's how I learned everything about VFX. Because when I joined Escape, there wasn't a course for VFX artists, game artists yet. So I had to learn most of the stuff through YouTube tutorials, YouTube courses, paid courses, So you shouldn't avoid YouTube tutorials, but you should not just copy them and show that you can do something of your own. Learn it and then apply it to a different project and make it better, make it your own, and break it down. I think that's the one thing I'd say most important is. Another thing Brian said is that he wants to see people challenge themselves and see that they're picking creative portfolio pieces. don't go for, like I mentioned, very basic, oh, everyone is doing this gameplay VFX. Try stand out, do something more interesting. Like with my portfolio, I didn't really want to do gameplay VFX because I felt like everyone can do it with a few tutorials. So I went into more tech heavy stuff like water shaders, the snow shader that I did for my specialism. So try stand out. Don't just be copying YouTube tutorials and doing same that everyone is doing. Because if you look at 90% of the VFX show reels, they're all just simply gameplay VFX, fireball or lightning strike. Moving on to Steph. Steph, she's a VFX senior artist. I think she's been here for 4 years now. And I know that she looks at a lot of portfolios with Brian. So what she said is showing environment in your VFX rather than a blank editor in Unreal or Unity, whatever you use. And I think that's also a very important point. It's something that all of my portfolio pieces have, is showing it in an environment. It doesn't have to be a very complex environment. You could just be Megascans downloaded or a free asset pack downloaded from Unreal Store. Just make a little environment, just show it in context and show that it works in an actual game and it's not just something pretty in the editor. Another thing Steph has said is that she likes to see a good sense of timing in animations. So if you can add an animation to your portfolio piece, whatever you're doing, you should. And I guess that's kind of doing those gameplay VFX. Yeah, so you can, like Steph said, is animations. That will be through gameplay VFX. You can always have one good, pretty gameplay VFX, which has perfect timing, because it's really hard to get the timing right. You can make a pretty texture, but the timing is off. It won't add up, it won't blend nicely with all the other parts of the animation, the interaction. Moving on to Silas, he's a VFX artist. He joined a few weeks before I did. He worked at a few studios previously. What he said is to keep his portfolio or your portfolio updated regularly. That shows that you're persistent, that you're interested in what you're doing, that you're not just going to give up on work and stop doing it once you quit university. Another thing he said is trying to do unique and technically challenging projects that people haven't done before. I think that's a quite important thing to also listen to is if you do something simple that's not a lot of technical stuff is behind it, just like a few textures, like a little fireball, it's hard to see as to like why you, because 1,000 other people can do the same thing and probably have done it. So if you do something more complex, something that's not maybe as pretty or as flashing, but it just has a lot of tech in it, as long as you know the tech, as long as you know the workflows and you know the procedures and how to make that effect, you can apply it to anything and use it in future work at the studio. And the last thing Silas has said is show knowledge of different softwares. And I think that's, especially for Playground, that's a very big and important thing, because on a daily basis, I could say I use around 5, maybe different softwares to work on VFX, and they all have different UIs. They all have different way you work in it. And if you have, and it's not the softwares that like you've never used before, it's a lot of common softwares that you would use in university. So if you can show your knowledge of them, then the team would be more willing and they'll be sure that, oh, you know how to work in Maya, or you know how to work in Substance Designer. Well, this is mostly VFX related. It's not really for environment artists, this slide exactly, but that's the only people I was able to get to give a few notes for VFX artists. As I know, it's quite a new course in it's a new course in Escape. So hopefully this slide was very helpful. It's from people that are in the studio and people that look at your portfolio. So if you can tailor your portfolios to what they've said, and if you really want to work at Playground, I think this should be really, really helpful for you guys. And that's everything from me today. Thank you guys.